It feels like time has flown. 2 days have passed since that incident. On a bright afternoon, Ed went to Janica's cabin and knocked on the door while asking her if she was feeling better, but Janica suddenly became nervous when she heard Ed knocking on her cabin door. She frantically asked him not to come in yet. She needed to clean herself up. Janica also answered that she was still having trouble seeing. Hearing that, Ed then decided against going inside. The price to pay for borrowing magic from the future was immense. Because of that, Janica couldn't use her magic for the time being, and her vision had also deteriorated. The supreme water spirit, Freed, who had single-handedly stopped 5 apostles, seemed to have crashed into the forest outside Arkan Island. This was caused by Janica, who could no longer control him because she fainted from exhaustion, and when she opened her eyes, she was already in the cabin. Janica herself didn't know why she was there. Regardless, Ed was glad that everything had been overcome, but, while Ed was standing in front of Janica's cabin door, someone approached him and said, "If something like this happens again, you absolutely have to find me first." Hearing that, Ed turned around and looked at the person. It turned out to be Belle Maya. Ed thanked her for coming. Maya's face was beaming as if she was anticipating something. Seeing that made Ed think. When a maid is promoted to head maid, she no longer had to do cleaning work, but from her expression, he felt that Maya was eager to do rough work. While Ed was thinking about that, Maya walked closer and asked how he was doing. Ed answered that he was indeed worried about Janica, who couldn't see, but other than that, he was fine. But Maya said that wasn't what she meant. She meant, "Is there anything else troubling him?" Ed fell silent for a moment upon hearing that, then answered no. Hearing his answer, Maya said she understood. For now, taking care of Miss Janica was the top priority. While walking into Janica's cabin, Maya then told him she just wanted to remind him, he also needed to help Janica change her clothes and wipe her sweat. Hearing that, Ed said he knew that. Maya continued, she knew very well that someone like him wouldn't make such mistakes, but Maya suddenly paused for a moment before entering. She then turned back to him and said, "But aren't you at that stormy age of youth? If not now, then when would you ever make such a mistake? Sometimes I think it's fine to listen to your inner voice." But, before Maya could finish her words, Ed quickly closed the cabin door in front of him to stop her from talking. While turning around and walking away, Ed told her not to say strange things and then quickly go help Janica. But, Ed then paused for a moment when he heard Maya say that was a pity. Maya suddenly remembered something and said to him, "You just spoke informally." Maya looked very pleased about it. Ed could only stand silently while feeling annoyed about it. He didn't respond to her at all. He then turned and continued walking away. After teasing Ed for a bit, Maya then entered Janica's cabin and checked on her condition, but she then got angry when she saw the room where she was. Leaving a patient in a dusty room like this was a form of crime. Her condition would be better if she were placed in the academy's infirmary. Maya immediately opened all the room's windows wide to let fresh air in. Ed was speechless with all the commotion, but what left him even more speechless was, Belle Maya opened the bedroom window while Janica was changing her clothes. Time passed, and it was already late afternoon. After a whole day of taking care of Janica, quick-witted Belle Maya seemed to notice that he was mentally unsettled. Opening all the doors and windows while bathing Janica was madness, but thanks to that, the day passed without time to dwell on anything else. Although he only skipped managing the cabin for 2 days, it felt like he had been gone for a month. The firewood stock was also running low, but, while Ed was thinking about that while skinning his hunt, someone suddenly came to his camp and greeted him. The person was dressed in a hooded cloak that covered her face. She was also holding a lute that looked like Adele's, and as the person walked closer, Ed then recognized who it was. It was Kylie, or more precisely Saintess Clarice. While removing the hood covering her face, Clarice then dispelled her disguise and returned to her original appearance. While Ed was making her a drink, Clarice told him that Archbishop Verdio had been officially excommunicated. Hearing that, Ed said he understood. Clarice continued, "He's being escorted to the Holy See by the Holy Emperor and the Apostle. His punishment will be left to the Holy Emperor." Hearing that, Ed asked her if she still believed in the Church. Clarice answered that the Holy Emperor had acknowledged his mistakes. She believed all this was only because of one heretical archbishop who managed to exploit the Church's shaky authority. Perhaps this incident could be a turning point for the Church to move in a new direction. She was willing to give them a chance. Ed only sat silently while closing his eyes upon hearing that, but, he then opened his eyes again when he heard Clarice tell him that Adele had disappeared. She had used her status as a saintess to search for her whereabouts, but she couldn't find her anywhere. Ed asked, wasn't there something she wanted to tell her? Clarice confirmed it. Initially she wanted to tell her everything she experienced after leaving the holy city, but now, Clarice paused for a moment. She then looked up while smiling and said that she just wanted to say thank you. She then pointed to the loot she brought and said she would leave it here, because Adele had traveled to so many places, she might make this camp her next stop. After making Clarice a torch, they then stood up. Clarice asked him if he would still stay at this camp during the summer break. Ed answered probably yes, because he had nowhere else to go. Hearing that, Clarice said she had a small request. Ed then looked at her in confusion upon hearing that. With a blushing face, Clarice asked if he could treat her as a junior from now on. Hearing that, while handing her the torch he made, Ed asked in confusion, hasn't it always been like that? He meant, when he was with Kylie, he naturally treated her as a junior, but, Clarice said that wasn't what she meant. With a sweet smile on her face, Clarice asked him not to hesitate to ask for her help if he needed it. She might not be able to repay all his kindness, but she would do everything she could to help him. After saying that, Clarice then walked away. Ed stood silently for quite a while watching her leave. He kept standing there until Clarice's figure disappeared from his sight. At that moment, the sound of the cabin door opening was heard. While walking out, she told him, it seemed she had to leave now. If she stayed here, she was worried she'd run into Clarice again. Hearing that, Ed then turned to her and asked if she was sure it was okay. The person turned out to be Adele. She had been hiding in the cabin while tending to her injuries. Adele said her divine power and celestial magic hadn't returned yet, but she could move now. But, Ed said that wasn't what he meant. He asked if she was okay leaving without saying goodbye to Clarice. Adele answered yes. There were no more songs she could sing for her. Perhaps it could be said, she no longer had the courage to lie to her. If she thought about it again, everything started with lies. Her words about worshipping the god of Telos, the various stories about traveling the world she told, and the songs about freedom she often sang. All the songs she played with this lute were lies. Ed only listened to her story silently. Adele paused for a moment while gazing at her lute with a melancholic look, but Ed was startled, because Adele suddenly threw the lute into the burning campfire. Adele said she planned to explore every place she mentioned in the lies and the songs she sang to Clarice. It would be a very long journey, so she wanted to leave behind heavy baggage. Until now, her journey had always been about escaping fate, but this time, she would go on a real journey, not an escape. Hearing that, Ed asked in confusion what the difference was. Adele paused for a moment upon hearing his question. She then smiled faintly and said, if I had to say, perhaps because now I have a place to return to. I have to return in 3 years, because I don't want Clarice to graduate before I come back, and when my journey ends, I want to return here and play a new song I've written. Hearing that, Ed said he would help her choose the perfect wood for her new instrument when she returned. Adele chuckled upon hearing that. She wondered if she should return in 2 years instead, but Ed suddenly asked her one thing. Was that all? Adele's smile vanished upon hearing his question. She knew exactly what he meant. Ed continued, you've lost your magic and divine power, which means you can no longer see the future. The future you knew ends here. Now, you're going to places you've never dreamed of, starting a new journey without knowing what will happen next. You can no longer do anything about the predetermined scenario, and it's possible you'll face a future worse than you imagined. Ed seemed to be recounting what he experienced in this world while saying that to her. Ed then looked at her and asked, after understanding all that, aren't you afraid? Adele fell silent upon hearing his question. She then honestly answered that she was afraid, but she then turned around while carrying her storage bag. With a wide smile, she then asked him, but isn't that exciting? After saying that, Adele then walked away with confident steps to face the unknown challenges. Time passed, and the dark night arrived. With only a sliver of moonlight and the faint glow of fireflies, many things had changed. Just now, he spoke with a girl who was supposed to be dead in the original story. He wasn't talking about the scenario, but the moment of choice shaped by limited time. Right after Ed defeated Taldarek, he was faced with 2 difficult decisions. Should he leave Arkan Island to prevent the resurrection of the Saint Dragon? Or should he stay here to save Adele? At that moment, he chose to stop the resurrection of the Saint Dragon. In other words, he decided to sacrifice Adele. If Adele's divine power had weakened, and if Lucy hadn't remembered her memories during the time loops as he had experienced, he would surely have decided to leave Adele for his own survival. Ed wasn't hypocritical and admitted that he was indeed that kind of person. This reminded him of memories from his first life. He was someone who hid behind the excuse of survival, whether it was valuing affection, missions, friendships, or camaraderie, if it came to his survival. All those things were easily discarded. Ed kept sitting there, staring at the extinguished campfire while lost in his thoughts, and while Ed sat silently there contemplating the meaning of his life, someone then walked toward him under the shimmering moonlight. It was Janica. She slowly walked toward him guided by the spirits, with unfocused eyes like someone with vision impairment. Janica then sat beside him while leaning her head on his shoulder. Now, the summer break had arrived. Until this moment, many things had changed. Ed Roth Taylor, who was supposed to be expelled from the academy, had become an honorary student. Janica, the boss of Act 1, was also by his side, and Lucy, the boss of Act 3, had disappeared from the story. Even so, amidst so many events that had changed from the original scenario, there was surely something that didn't change. Whether it was altering the Fixek's fate or turning a blind eye to someone's sacrifice, whatever it was, Ed was determined to survive.